volume is behaving itself these days. So I'll try and make as many topical videos as so long as I can. I want to talk about this new law that's coming into effect in the Sultanate of Brunei. Um, I'm shocked, but I'm not overly surprised because I recall a few years ago making a video about human rights in Brunei, and it got quite a lot of responses. Um, I think this vindicates my harsh assessment at that time because this is grotesque. So I'm going to read out the report from CNN and then offer some of my thoughts. A new law which comes into effect from next week will punish homosexual sex and adultery with death in a small Southeast Asian kingdom of Brunei. Beginning on April the 3rd, any individuals found guilty of the offence will be stoned to death according to the new penal code. Punishment will be witnessed by a group of Muslims. The country's strict new laws were announced in 2014 and have been rolled out gradually. That would have been where my previous video came from. The latest phase of implementation, including the brutal new provisions, was quietly announced on the Brunei Attorney's website on December the 29th, 2018. Quietly announced. I wonder, was that because they hoped it wouldn't get international attention? Human rights groups were quick to express horror at the penal code, which will also order the amputation as a punishment for theft. Brunei must immediately halt its plans to implement these vicious punishments and revise its penal code in compliance with its human rights obligations. The international community must urgently condemn Brunei's move to put these cruel penalties into practice. Rachel Choa Hard, Brunei researcher at Amnesty International, said in a statement. There was broad international outcry when Brunei became the first country in the region to adopt Sharia law in 2014, an Islamic legal system which outlines stricter corporal punishments. The tiny oil-rich kingdom of just over 450,000 people is located on the island of Borneo, close to moderate Islamic nations of Indonesia and Malaysia. Although I'd use that term moderate with caution these days, because they too are sliding down a darker path. Not as bad as this, but I'd moderate would have been a term I'd used 5, 10 years ago, not now. In comparison to its neighbours, Brunei has grown conservative in recent years, including banning the sale of alcohol. The new penal code was announced in May 2014 by the Sultan of Brunei, Sultan Bolkiah, who also acts as the country's prime minister. In announcing the change, government's websites quoted the Sultan saying that his government does not expect other people to accept and agree with it, but that it would suffice if they just respect the same nation in the same way it also respects them. Right. This is yet another example of an Asian country just basically treating human rights with utter contempt. In this case, obviously Islamic theocracy. It's disgusting, it's barbaric, it's backward, and we should not be politically correct in condemning it. You know, if this arrogant sultan, one of the richest men in the world, clearly all that wealth hasn't dragged them out of the dark ages, I think they need to feel a backlash. I think they need to feel a serious backlash. We need to expel our ambassador or consulate general or whatever the equivalent title is, um, or at least recall them until they come up with, well, they won't. They'll defend the Sultan. Unless I'm mistaken, it's also an absolute monarchy. So um, I'm disgusted. I'm not overly surprised because, like I say, I'd previously been aware of this, but it's absolutely disgusting. As for it's our internal affairs, if we go down that line, then any country could do whatever it wants to any group of people. You know, regimes could torture people with absolute impunity. And you could say, oh, well, it's their own internal affairs. I am a strong believer in international law and international human rights. If that is, if countries that respect those things, or at least have a broad respect of them, don't speak up, then international relations, international values of human rights just go out the window. And I know people will say, oh, but Nathan, there are no international values because not everywhere agrees. But the point is actually, at the UN, there has been legislature signed. The International Declaration of Human Rights, which has had to be updated many times. This is not just hot air, at least it shouldn't be. So I think Brunei needs to be polarized. Next time Brunei wants aid from Western countries, they shouldn't get it, frankly. Say there's some serious typhoon or something hits, it sounds harsh, but so long we should not be propping up these nasty little regimes. But because of Brexit, we're distracted. The Brexit impasse just distracts us from everything. Now I know we have some ties with Brunei. I understand there's some military training there, but we cannot stand by and be okay with this and go by this odious thing. Oh, mind your own business. Not all cultures are equal. You cannot tell me that stoning someone to death for being gay or adultery, and in a state like this that can include rape, you cannot tell me that is equal to societies that don't stone people to death. No, not all cultures are equal, and liberal Western democracies are superior to this backward, regressive, barbaric mentality. Some might say that harsh language won't change matters. I don't expect it to change actually, but I do want to see them face a backlash. And if you're from Brunei and don't like what I'm saying, to hell with that. I don't care. If you're offended by the truth, I don't care. This is barbaric. I have gay friends, and the idea that they could be stoned to death for who they are, not hurting anyone else, it's makes me sick. Absolutely sickening. So the PC brigade, and this is the thing, it isn't just people inside countries that have such regressive rights records. It's also useful apologists who say, oh, well, it's their internal affairs. We can't say anything. Actually, we can. We can. We can choose who we trade with. We can choose who we want to have diplomatic relations with. And I don't think that we should have such close diplomatic relations with somewhere that is so, so backward. All our oil wealth, all the Sultan's personal wealth, and he is incredibly wealthy. I understand he's one of the top 10 wealthiest people on earth. Clearly hasn't dragged this kingdom into the 21st century. I'm absolutely disgusted. And I really wish, for once, the British government would show backbone on human rights. We have been too quiet for too long on too many of these things. If we were showing backbone, we would be not only tackling regimes like this, but also bigger ones like China. But we're silent, and it's utterly shameful.